Okay, I've got a lot of different types of units. I've got the G1s, G3s, G4s, etc. And a lot of times I'm doing testing, and in order to boot those guys up, I'm always having to take a SATA drive, stick it in there, and boot from it. And that's great, but I've got to pop the case open. If I happen to have a one that's kind of almost like a parts only, it might not even have a caddy or a connector. So I'm kind of out of luck with those. And I get a lot of these SATA drives with the units that I buy, or, these are pretty inexpensive to pick up. And along the way, I've also created one of these Win to Go or Windows to Go type of USBs, USB thumb drives, and you can boot from them, and you actually run an actual version of Windows. But on these, it's so slow that it just makes it, just unbearable. I mean, you pretty much, if you're going to use these, you'd go in, make a quick change, like maybe a BIOS upgrade, etc. But I thought, well, what if I could do something where I could get a faster version? And I kind of was working on a different video, and I stumbled across sort of an aha moment that's probably obvious to a lot of other folks. But I said, what if I took one of these, which I have laying around, and what if I took one of these, which is an enclosure that can hold a SSD, or actually these are probably mainly made, people would buy them and put, let's say, an old laptop drive in there so that they could hook it up via USB and be able to still get to, the data that's on there. But what if I combined all these together and then used the install process of Rufus to make a Win2Go disk using one of these? What would be the outcome in terms of speed, etc.? And surprisingly, this combination is very fast, and it's to the point where I'm going to switch, probably when I'm doing any sort of new unit. I'm just going to use a one of these more faster Win2Go drives. So I'm going to show in the video how I created it, show you some of the benchmarks. These particular enclosures, this one's from Sovereign. I'm sure there's other companies. This runs around maybe $12 on Amazon. This one actually does use, screws. They also have a toolless version, which I have one of those, and I like to save the toolless ones for ones where it's going to be temporary. So you just kind of slide off the top, stick in the drive, put it back on, do your stuff, and then maybe you're done with it, you pop the drive out. That one I like to use more for experimentation. Maybe I've got a drive I want to erase, but for more long term, I would probably use the ones that actually have the screws. Very easy to install. I'll show you how to get those set up and how to do the installation. So to install the drive, we just take out these two screws here. And you notice it's very simple. There's nothing else in there. It's just a hollow cave, but this does all the work. Connect it on. Now, I'll have to see which way fits best. Now, you've got the drive, and then the question is, how do you want to connect your USB? I'd probably, let's see. Yeah, it's about the same. So you've got also an indicator light that's on there. You just slide it in. I'm not quite sure why there's screws on the other side. I always end up somehow taking them out, and it's not really needed. So those you can leave in. And we'll just put these back on. No special drivers are needed. It shows up as a USB drive. I'm using a 256 gig. I would say, to make it worth your while, it should be at least 128. So 256 is way more than needed, but then you'll have all this extra space that you can put onto, if you want to add additional files. We're going to be downloading, as example, an ISO. Maybe you throw some other ISOs on there. I'm also thinking I might take one of these and turn it into a Ventoy boot disk, because again, this is so much faster and I can put more on it, that I may want to do that, especially if I want to run some like live CD type of ISOs. Okay, so we've got this. This is going to plug in there, and then this will plug into the unit. Now, what we're actually going to use for all this work is this, which is a Windows to Go, Win to Go that I've already created, is already working on this G3. So all the scenes that you see are going to be using this to create another Windows to Go disk. So let's switch and boot this up, and we'll go in and we'll look to see what we need to do as far as on the Windows side. Now, before we get into the actual setting up, I just want to show that you can very easily take your Win2Go disk, or external, and start running it on another unit. So this is a G3. This is it's a G1 EliteDesk. I'm going to boot into here and just to show you that it works the same as if it was on the G3, and I don't have to do anything special. Now, sometimes when you switch from, let's say, a G3 to G1 and it's never been on a G1, it will take a little bit as it's loading in additional device drivers. You may also get something like this in which you have to reset your PIN. So that's not a big deal. You'll just relog into your account, and then you could use the same PIN you always had. But for some reason, going into the G1, this happens a lot. Okay, I'm running now on the G1. It looks like I'm going to have to do a restart because it's probably found some drivers installed. But before I do that, I just want to show you real quick that we are in fact running under a G1. So the CPU, this is a 4590T, which is only on the G1. Memory, I've got 16 gig. You can see it's doing pretty decent in terms of, there's not a whole lot of disk I/O that you would expect to see on, something that, is really slow. So it looks pretty good here. So this is pretty impressive speed. This is easily 4 times the speed you would get with a USB thumb drive. And considering this is also running the OS at the same time, that's even, in my book, even more impressive. Some folks might ask, well, what if I took an M.2 NVMe and put that in a external enclosure for USB and tried that? Wouldn't that be faster? At least the one that I have, which is also from Sobrent, which is a external enclosure, I put in a 2230 M.2, and when I ran the benchmarks, they were pretty much the same as what you see here. I think I've whet your appetite. What I'm going to do is shut this down. I'm going to go back to my G3, boot it up, and then we'll show how you actually make a Windows to Go disk. So in order to make our Windows to Go or Win to Go bootable USB drive, we're going to need 2 things. We're going to need a Windows 11 ISO, and we're going to need Rufus. So let's go through and grab both of those. So I'm going to type in Windows 11 ISO. We want to make sure we're going to Microsoft, so we're getting the real thing. And what we're going to want to pull down is this Windows 11 installation media, which basically it's the media creation tool. This will allow us to pull down the ISO. So say download. This one's pretty small, so that part downloads pretty quickly. We're going to launch it. This takes a little bit as it's getting things ready, and we'll accept. You can uncheck this where it says use recommended, but pretty much unless you're changing the language, the edition is always going to say Windows 11. So say next. We don't want, even though of course ultimately we are putting it onto a USB, we want to choose ISO. Where we want to save it, let's put it in our downloads. And we can just call it Windows. Let's call it Windows 11. And we'll come back when this is done. Not quite sure what it was doing before, but I guess now it is creating the Windows 11 media. Okay, created the media. We'll just say finish. Now, I've always used this Windows 11 installation media, the media creation tool. Just noticed as I was downloading that there's also go straight to the ISO. I believe in the end it's all the same ISO, but let's see. So you could say multi-edition, and I think you have to do confirm, and then you pick what your, the language, firm. Now we can do the download. So it looks like the name is actually going to call out the fact that this is the 25H2, which is the latest and greatest. Now, interesting enough, this is the Windows 11, which we got for the media tool, and then this is the one we just downloaded. And look, it's almost 1.7 gig larger, maybe because it has more options. We'll try it. We'll do Rufus with this and see how it handles it. So our next thing we need to get is Rufus. Type in Rufus, and we want to make sure it's from this rufus.ie. We'll go to downloads, and you can pretty much take the top one here. Don't worry about this, just hit X. There's nothing to install, it just runs. So here's Rufus 4.11. Here's Rufus. Notice if anyone's ever done Rufus with a smaller USB drive, it will automatically sort of pick it and it'll already be in the list here. But looks like Rufus has kind of a safety mechanism so you don't accidentally blow away, your main drive. So what you have to do is hit Alt F, and then that will pop up and bring in the drive. So in my case, mine's no label because that's the drive that we put into the enclosure, and I hooked it up earlier. So there it is. It wants me to select, so we'll go with this one. And then for our image option, we want to say Windows to go. Partition, I went with GPT last time. You can do MBR. I don't think it makes a big difference. Volume label, I tended to change this to Win to go, but since I already have one, we'll just call this Windows to go. All right. And we'll say start. Okay. Now, I want to make sure that people are following licensing. Now, obviously, most of you folks, if you've got your EliteDesk, it probably has at least a Windows 11 home license, but it should have a Windows 11 Pro built-in license. So I'm going to do a Windows 11 Pro. And then it comes up with some options. It says prevent it from accessing internal disk. Well, I want it to be able to see other disks, so that's okay. Remove requirement. I like being able to log into my Microsoft account, and I'll just leave everything else as is. And warning, yes, it's going to blow it away. And multiple partitions. So the drive that I'm installing to has multiple partitions because, I pulled it from something else I was working with. So it says, yep, sure. It's going to blow everything away. Deleting it. Now it's formatting it. And now it's going to run through. It's probably going to take about 20-30 minutes. We'll come back when it's done. So we'll hit close. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut this down, unplug the old Win2Go drive, and we'll use our new one, and I'll show you, because when you plug it in and boot up, it's still going to go into kind of like a sort of a Windows setup light. And it's still going to ask you questions, and that's also where you can put in like your Microsoft account to log in, etc. Okay, we've just plugged in the new drive, and this is what I'm seeing as it's booting up. Getting some devices ready, may install some drivers. I do have it hooked to the network because I'm going to want to put in my Microsoft account information. So here's the mini install. So we'll go through, pick your country, pick your keyboard. All right, we are in Windows, and if I go this PC, you notice, remember when we were creating, we called it Windows to Go. And if I go into the system, it does show that we're running Windows 11 Pro and the latest 25H2. So that looks pretty good. The other thing you want to do before you forget is undo the BitLocker. Because if you want to use this to boot from any other place, you're going to have to remove BitLocker. Otherwise, you're going to have to type in all this long code and so forth, and it's just going to cause a lot of extra work. So we right-click on this, go to Manage BitLocker, and then just say Turn off BitLocker. And it's going to decrypt. Shouldn't take too long because you don't have anything on it yet. This way, do it right away so that before you have a whole bunch of stuff, and then it's just going to take longer to decrypt. So now BitLocker is off. So we're okay. Ran the benchmarks, and it's pretty much what we had before. Let me know how it works for you and how you're going to use it.